Welcome everyone, Bruchim Habayim. Thank you, Rabbi Fahi, for your very beautiful, inspiring words. Friends, first of all, just being here tonight, because you all have places to be besides here, learning, preparing for Rosh Hashanah, is very commendable. You look like people who have social lives, so kol hakavod, well done. And all of you watching online, I know for sure there's other things you could be watching, but you're watching this instead to prepare for the Yamim Noraim, the very awesome days that are coming up very, very soon. You know, we are at a time of Silichot. We Sfaradim say all of Elul. Our Ashkenazi brothers and sisters just joined us this past Motzei Shabbat, and we open up with a very weird expression, saying, actually it's a verse we're going to see, when we say Silichot. I don't know if the Ashkenazim have this, but it's a shame, because there's so much packed into this one tefillah. And we open up our silichot, those who turn up on time. So sometimes we make it, sometimes we don't. Ben Adam, Malach Adam, son of man. A very unusual expression in and of itself, but we'll leave that for another time. Ben Adam, Malach Adam. Why are you sleeping? Kum, get up, kara, and call out, betachanunim, with songs and blessings and prayers. Who are you talking to? I'm in the synagogue. What is this? Is this the rabbi coming to your house, holding the silichot, says, Kum kara l'tachanunim. Imagine that. Imagine the rabbi came to every single house, knocked on the door, and started singing this to wake you up. It can't be that, because we're already in the synagogue. Where is this even from? What do these words come from? And they come from an unusual place, from the book of Jonah, Yonah. Yonah, we know, had a mission, and his mission was go to a place called Nineveh, to go to these non-Jewish people who are doing terrible sins. And his mission was to go to them and tell them to do teshuvah. He freaks out. I can't do it. Why is a long story. Pretty much because he knew they'd listen, and it would reflect badly upon his people that he was a prophet for, and the Jewish people would not listen. And so he escaped, and he wanted to go to a country where you can get no nuvuah. In his case, it was modern-day Iraq, Chutz La'aretz. And so he goes down to the port in Yaffo, and he tries to get away and escape. And of course, we know what happens. He gets on board the ship. In order to escape his mission, a big storm comes. And when the storm comes, he goes to bed. Imagine that. I've never been in a cruise ship before, but even that little bit of unbalance, it's hard to sleep in. And outside is a big raging storm. And Yonah, Zoe, right, fast asleep. Comes the Rav HaChovel, is how he's described. If you look at the translation, it calls the person who comes to him to wake him up the captain. He's the captain of the ship. But that's not what the Rav HaChovel means. It means the master of the ropes, which is an expression for people, say the rabbis, who work on ships, because they know how to make knots and ropes. So the master of the ropes, the captain of the ship, comes to him, and he says to him, Vayomer lo, malcha nirdam. Sound familiar? Why are you asleep? Kum, get up. Kara el Elokecha. Go and pray to your God, because he already tried praying to all the other gods. The ship was full of pagans and garnished. Nothing happened. They were still in the storm, about to die. He says, Ulai, perhaps. Ulai is one of the ways of saying maybe. Pen is maybe something bad's going to happen. Ulai is maybe something good's going to happen. Ulai yitashet Elokecha. Maybe your God is going to listen to us. V'lo ne'avad, and we're not going to die. Do you know who inspires Jonah to wake up from his slumber? In his case, literally was sleeping. But there was a deeper sleep that he was going through. He'd given up on his mission in life. He'd given up. And the master of the ropes, the captain of the ship, also to the rabbis is an expression for Hashem. Because Hashem is pulling the strings. You get it? He decides all the troubles you go through and the storms you have in life. And the job is to wake up. Wake up to your mission. You were given a straight mission and you know you got to get it done. And sometimes we just go to sleep. Comes along Elul, comes Rosh Hashanah, comes along Yom Kippur, and it's time to wake up. Interestingly, it was a non-Jew who came and woke him up. He was the inspiration that got Jonah back on track. I know we like to think he went to a shiur, he listened to a class, and that's what inspired him, but that's not what happened. Sometimes Hashem sends us messengers in the weirdest ways, in the strangest circumstances. Sometimes a righteous Gentile, a goy, you can't stop reading about it. Someone like Charlie Kirk can get up and say things, and these Jewish people are watching it, and people are very uncomfortable. Shouldn't you be listening to a rabbi speaking? You probably should. A teacher, a shiur. But Hashem sends harbe shluchim l'makom. There are many messengers that come to the Jewish people. And this guy made a Kiddush Hashem, whether we like it or not. And he did. And people were inspired by his words. I used to watch some of his videos. I was inspired. Inspired, actually, there was one non-Jewish person who spoke good about us. I know they're twisting his words now, but it's there for everyone to see. He takes on the role of the Rav HaChovel, the master of the ropes. And that's the wake-up we need right now. And that's what's being told to us. This is the time. You know, the Kotzker Rebbe, very smart individual who gave one-liners that he summarized so much information in one line. He said, worse than being asleep is convincing yourself that you're awake. We could stop right there. Dayenu. That's worse. When you're convinced, now I'm awake, I know what's going on, I'm aware of everything that's happening to me in my life. So we have Rosh Hashanah coming. In a week's time, B'ezrat Hashem. In a week's time, we're sitting with friends and family, eating, enjoying, having a good time. And you should. It's the beginning of the new year. Not too much of a good time, but a good time. Hashem wants to welcome in the new year with celebration and simanim. We're going to talk about that in a few moments. And it's a time of great inspiration, but let's be honest. We all know Rosh Hashanah comes and it goes. We've all been through many Rosh Hashanahs over here. And yeah, we know it comes and goes and we go back to where we were before. What's the point? What's the point of going through it again and again and again? Another Rosh Hashanah, another Seder Teshuvah, another Yom Kippur, another Sukkot. We get it. You know, I had a friend of mine who owned a bunch of apartments in Golders Green. Jewish neighbor in London. And he was always very, very careful to try to attract tenants who paid the rent. That's the whole point, yeah? Someone's got to pay the rent. Otherwise, what are you renting out for? And then people weren't renting, and so he had to take people who weren't, the top people, and he got concerned because this was his paranasa. He had a few apartments. So something happened. One of the people came to the apartment, one of the tenants, and didn't pay. And it went on for months and months and months. Eventually, it's enough already. He's paying a mortgage, no one's paying the rent. So he takes the guy to court, and he got very nervous. The judge was there with all his robes on, and he knows that generally speaking, the judges take the side of the renter and not the landlord. Landlords get a bad deal, and the renters, so he thought this is not going to end well. But the judge, who wasn't Jewish, by the way, had what we call a Gemara cup. And he's listening to this guy, and he said, why are you not paying the rent? And the guy said, well, I got there, the heating didn't work, AC, not good, fridge was broke, had to fix that, had to fix all this stuff. So you know what? I refuse to pay because my payment is fixing all the stuff that was broken in the apartment. Now my friend is really freaking out. He said the stuff was all new, but he can't prove that. He hasn't got the receipts. It was all great. How can you prove to the judge that everything was actually working from day one? And this guy is just making excuses. And the judge turned around to this tenant and said to him, let me ask you something. When you moved in, Were the things working? And he said, yeah, when I moved in, they were. And he said, did you ever pay any rent? And he looked at the books and he says, no, this guy never paid a single penny. And the judge says, then you don't win the case. You've got to pay all the rent you owe from the beginning. Because if you paid 1 month, at least 1 month, I know you were serious about paying. After you can go with your excuses, this broke, that broke, but you got to show at least 1 month. And my friend won the case, Baruch Hashem. It's the same with us. We're going to make a lot of promises to Hashem. We're going to do a lot of teshuvah. I'm sorry for this. I'm not going to do it again. I'm sorry for that. Rosh Hashanah, Simanim, Brachot, Tefillah, Shofar, Yom Kippur. We're going to go back to where we were. Absolutely. But at least you have 1 month. Forget 1 month. Do you have 1 day of really meaning it? If you do, I'll let you off everything. At least in that moment, when you're in the midst of it, do you really mean it? Because if you do, says Hashem, I know afterwards, fridges and freezers, everything's going to break. But at least show me for 1 day you really meant it. And then I'm going to judge you favorably the rest of the year. Although probably we're going to revert back to who we were before that time. I was leading a trip a number of years ago to Poland. And in Poland, there's a city called Krakow. You've heard of it, a very famous Jewish city. And there's a synagogue. We had many students with us. And the synagogue is called the Isaac Synagogue. Isaac, spelled in a weird way. E-I-Z-I-K. Isaac Synagogue. You heard of this place? So I want to know the history. So we had a tour guide with us who actually wasn't Jewish. And I said, who's this Isaac? Must have been a big benefactor. And he says, you don't know the Isaac story. I actually did know the story, but I didn't know this was the place. You may have heard the story before, but I have a new insight into this story. The story is about a very poor man. And his name was Isaac Yekel. And he lived in Krakow. And he was very poor. He didn't have whatever they had in those days, rubles to rub together. Garnish, nothing at all. And one day the story goes, this Isaac went to sleep in a dream. And in his dream, he dreamed clearly of a bridge that was out of the city. And under the bridge was buried treasure. Treasure! And a lot of it. So as the story goes, you may have heard it, he schlepped to find this bridge and he found it. But there was a soldier who was on top of the bridge, for some reason, was going back and forth. And he sees this Jewish guy like shifting around, walking around, trying to figure out what's going on. And he says, you there, what are you doing? Isaac freaks out. Got to tell him the truth. He says, this is a weird story. I'm not here to cause any harm or damage. I had a dream about a bridge, and under the bridge is buried money. And the soldier says to him, dreams, that's stupid. I also have a recurring dream. I dream about some Jewish guy called Isaac who's got an old oven in his house, and under the oven is buried treasure. Isaac's like, interesting. He leaves, goes back home, digs under the oven, and finds a vast amount of gold and silver, whatever it is. And he used a chunk of that to build the synagogue in Krakow, which is still there. And you'll see a big synagogue called the Isaac Synagogue, still there to this very day. That's what he used his money for. But that's not why I'm telling you the story. All of us are going to Rosh Hashanah, and we're expecting big things to find there. We're expecting to find simanim. We're expecting to find tefillot and shofar and many, many prayers and Yom Kippur. But you know what we're actually going to be doing? Finding ourselves. The treasure, my dear friends. This is not me speaking. The rabbis tell us the greatest treasure you can find on Rosh Hashanah is yourself. Just get in touch with who you are. What do you really want from life? What do you want from the upcoming year? I know we all have certain things that we need, whether shidduchim for ourselves, our friends, our loved ones, our children, parnasah, briyut. I get it. But in essence, What do you want 5, 7, 8, 6 to be? When you stand here in a year's time, what do you want to say you accomplished? You can look 1 year ahead and work backwards. In essence, who are you? That's what we're trying to figure out, my dear friends, at this time of year. You know, the Gemara says in Yonah something unbelievable. And it's a very misunderstood Gemara. I want to give you a different interpretation. Hirhuri avera kashu me'avera. The thought of a sin is worse than the sin itself. Now, it's a weird thing to say, that the thought of a sin is worse than the sin itself, because I got some good news for you. You're allowed to think about sinning. You know that? You know you're not punished for thinking about a sin? If you walk down the street and you pass one of those carts selling dubious meat products, right? And the wafting smell of the onions and the burgers come out, right? And you think, I don't know what's in there, but sometimes it smells good, especially if you're hungry. You're like, I wish I could eat it. Oh, I did a sin. I'm desiring to eat this animal burger, whatever it is. And the answer is, you don't have to be sorry. It smells delicious. You want to eat it, you're hungry. You just can't eat it because Hashem said you can't eat it. But if you didn't, I'd eat it. No problem whatsoever. So what's it talking about? The thought of a sin? Okay, there are a couple of exceptions, to be honest. Avodah zarah you cannot think about. Thinking about worshipping an idol is bad because you're removing Hashem from your neshama at that moment. So that is something you should never dream about wanting to do, to worship an idol. Most of us don't do that. But besides that, thinking about a sin and not doing it is not a problem. Now, if you do the action, then you're in trouble for the action and the thought that went into it. That's true. But still, the Gemara seems to say the thought of a sin is worse than the sin itself. Let me give you a novel interpretation. I want to take you with you into Rosh Hashanah, Seder Teshuvah, and Yom Kippur. And it goes like this. What it's saying is, you know what's worse than the sin itself? You're thinking about yourself after the sin. That's what it means. When you do an Aveirah and you feel bad about it, and you do Teshuvah, but you let it stay in your head and it festers in there and it's boiling away. That's who I am. That's what I do. What a terrible person I am. I can never go to synagogue. How can I show my face to my friends and family? That's what the Gemara is talking about. That's worse than the sin itself, because you've now become a person of yiush, despair. And when you despair about ever coming back, the sin is nothing. It's background noise compared to giving up on who you are and your tremendous potential. And we are all guilty of this. Who here or watching online couldn't say they've given up on being Jewish? Maybe it's a month, maybe a week, maybe a moment. But we all give up sometimes, and I just can't do anymore. The stories, everything that's coming out of the news, I just don't want to do it. I can't bear it anymore. We're broken. Yush is bad. That's worse than the sin itself. I'm being very serious. There's a very interesting story in the Gemara about, now we don't know who she was, but she's called Safta. So she's some Jewish grandmother the Gemara talks about. And this Safta, from the reading of the story, had a lot of chutzpah. I just picture, when I tell the story, I want you to picture in your mind what this old Jewish woman was like. But this Safta was very upset because some people who worked for the head of the town, the Resh Galuta of the city, had taken some of her wood. Some of her wood, she had planks of wood. And they built a sukkah from this wood. And she was very upset. So she went to Rav Nachman and said, Rav Nachman, these people stole from me, problem number one. And problem number two is they're sitting in a sukkah that's stolen, right? La lulav gazelle, it's a stolen sukkah. They're not fulfilling their mitzvah. I want my wood back. Was she entitled to her wood being returned? I would have thought so. We all know that there is a halacha. The Torah itself says, "V'heishiv et ha'gazela shegazal." You need to return something you stole. There are a couple of exceptions. The exceptions are if a person gives up hope of ever getting it back, you lose rights for that thing. If someone steals $5 from you, you're upset. But a week later, a month later, a few years later, you've given up. That money actually belongs to them. They still get punished for it, but that money belongs to them. But how about a plank? If someone steals some wood or metal, so if they just take it and they're able to return it, they must return it. But let's say they built a structure from that piece of wood. Then they don't need to break down their house, their building, in order to return it, because that's too much of a loss. They have to give the monetary value for it. So she comes forward and she says, "Hey, I want my wood back." Rav Nachman turns around and says, "No, they don't have to give you the wood back. You gave up hope of ever giving it back. It's a piece of wood, and therefore they only owe you the monetary value, but they can keep the wood." She freaks out and she screams. She's a Jewish grandmother, she can get away with it. She screams at Rav Nachman and she says, "A woman whose father had 318 slaves should never be ignored. You must listen to me." Huh? A woman whose father had 318 slaves you must listen to? What's she talking about? Who's her father? Who are these slaves? So all the commentaries try to figure out what she's talking about. And one opinion is she came from a very wealthy house. And she had a lot of pride. And she said, "You know what? My father's very, very wealthy. He had 318 slaves. I deserve to have my stuff returned to me. Don't mock me." But that's not what's going on. She could have just said, "My dad's rich." That would have got away with it. Who do we know who had 318 slaves? Avram Avinu. Avram had 318 slaves. And he went through tremendous trials and tribulations. His nephew Lot was kidnapped. Remember that? And he pretty much adopted him as a child. And he was kidnapped by 4 kings who had attacked 5 kings. Kidnapping Jewish children, not a new thing, it's been going on for thousands of years. And Avram Avinu took these 318 slaves and he said, "I am going to take my nephew back." And he went to war with these 318 slaves. She was saying, just like my father, Avram Avinu, with his 318 slaves, I don't give up. We are the people who don't despair. And I don't despair of getting this piece of wood back, so I want my wood back. Don't just give me the money. And my friends, this message is for us today. 5785, a week away from 5786. We all feel moments of despair. Lately, open any news, they're blaming us for everything. Some Palestinian stubs his toe. Jews. Someone in Russia, Eurovision Song Contest. I mean, come on. Really? The best thing that could happen is if you stop the Irish from singing. They literally have the worst voices in the world. It'll be a tremendous rachmanut to remove half those revolting countries and their singers from the Eurovision Song Contest. Just give us 2 points and that'll be the end of it. Dayenu. That's all we need. They're blaming us for everything. Even Charlie Kirk. How do they find some dude from some Meshuggah from a wealthy family? No, he's really a Jew. Look at his Magen David. He's friends with Bibi. What, are you out of your mind? We're on the edge of despair. But this Safta was saying, we don't give up. We don't even give up for a piece of wood, let alone our Torah and our mitzvah and our land and our heritage. We cannot give up. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu named his child Eliezer. A beautiful name. Because he could have given up. He was on the verge of it. He had to run for his life from Paro. And he said, no. God is going to help me. Eliezer, I'm never, ever going to give up. Because I'm going to come back to my people one day. And he did. And he became our Mashiach of the day. You know, the gematria, the numerical value of Yush, despair, which is the lowest form of despair, is 317. Is 317. Okay, so it's almost 318, yeah? You kind of get away with it. Gematria, you get away with one or two. The word itself is worth one. 317 is despair. Just a little bit more, you get to 318. Just a little bit extra. It doesn't take a lot. Just a little bit more emunah. Just an extra tefillah. Rosh Hashanah. My friends, I promise you, it's not the quantity of the prayers of Rosh Hashanah. It's the quality. Maybe think, it's so long. The Amidah, Musaf. My goodness, you get cramps. It's a lot. I understand. So don't try to grab all of it. But at least grab, say, Hashem, this one paragraph. Whatever it says, that's going to be my tefillah. I'm going to hold on to it. And it's going to become me. Just a little bit. Hold on, my friends. And hold on tight. You know, Mashiach comes, we're told, the generation of Mashiach's arrival, there's going to be a tremendous amount of yush in the world. The world itself is going to be despairing. Everyone's going to be talking about the end of the world is imminent. I don't know if they did that in the past, but every day, something's going to happen. Whether it's nuclear war, it's a meteor, it's aliens, everyone is on the imminent perspective of everything blowing up. But we're still here. And we're going to remain here. And it's going to be okay. Even if that's the way everyone talks, that's not the Jewish way of talking. Hashem runs the world. He runs the universe. And if they are aliens, and if they are meteors, He's going to protect it. And He's done that for thousands of years, and He's going to keep on doing it as well. And the prophet Isaiah says, Mi amin l'shemateinu. Who is going to believe what they hear when Mashiach comes? We're going to be like, it's just, I can't believe we went from such a low place to a place of such success and amazingness. That, my friends, is the way a Jew has to think. I'll finish off. I have 1 more minute. Mechila. You know, we have certain simanim we eat at our Rosh Hashanah Seder. And the Ashkenazim have a few, 1 or 2, and we have like 55, and we make stuff up, right? The machzor comes, right, and everyone's got like extra stuff written down there because you want good simanim, good signs, good portents for the future. And they're all good things to do. Karet, silka, all very, very good. And yes, of course, the apple and the hanu, that's a much later reality. The Gemara talks about karati and leeks and fenugreek and rimonim. All these things are mentioned historically. Do you know what's more important than having good simanim? The Mishnah Berurah says having a good attitude. Because if this Rosh Hashanah is your entire year, says the Chavetz Chaim, you know what's even better than eating the simanim and reading the prayers? It's actually all about the prayers that goes with it, by the way. The food is good, but the prayers are more important. That's why if you don't want to eat the simanim for whatever reason, you can still say the prayers. Just look at them. That's why the Gemara says you shouldn't eat them, but you can also look at them. At least say the words. But you know what's even better? Being in a good mood. Being happy. So there's a custom that many have not to eat nuts on Rosh Hashanah. Egozim. Egos. Why? Because egos is the same gematria, same numerical value as chet, sin. That's one of the minhagim. We don't eat nuts on Rosh Hashanah because it's the same gematria as sin, as chet. Okay, I hear. Plenty of other wonderful things to eat. Says the Kotzker Rabbi, we mentioned him before. And he says, you know what else has the same gematria as chet, sin? Chet, sin. Not a coincidence. Both have exactly the same letters with the same gematria in the same order. You know what you should stay away from? Sins. Try very hard, at least during the Rosh Hashanah Seder, as you're going through, and families and friends are there, and you want to yap and talk, and Lashon Hara must come out of your mouth. You know what's a great siman for a wonderful year? Being happy and not sinning. At least in Rosh Hashanah. The rest of the year, you sit, you schmooze, Lashon Hara comes out. I get it. We're all guilty of it, but at least once a year, my friends, at least once a year, as we're sitting there, to build up the zchut that we need the simanim tova of the entire year, that our enemies should be wiped out, God willing, B'ezrat Hashem, that brachot should come to our homes, our families, our synagogues. Maybe this, my friends, is going to be the secret of our success, of just trying for 2 days, at least the meals of 2 days, because in synagogue you're not doing too much sinning, right? Hopefully not. If you are, I don't know where your synagogue is, trying to be happy and saying the right things. May Hashem bless us all with continued success and brachot. May we take on the courage of our savtas, whether in the Gemara or our real savtas, to stand up and not despair, even in the darkest times. May we all celebrate with Mashiach this year, B'ezrat Hashem B'karav. Amen. Shana Tova Metuka.